Welcome to episode 56 of the Walleye Chronicles. This week, we have another Michigan man on, Mr. Roy Miller. He fishes the Michigan Walleye Tour, so we're going to learn everything we can about that. So sit back and enjoy Roy Miller, everybody.
How you doing, Roy?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me. The Walleye podcast scene is pretty slim, so I'm really glad to see you doing it, and you do a great job. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you much. So give me a little backstory on yourself. When did you start fishing? What was fishing like growing up? Where'd you grow up? All that kind of fun stuff.
Well, I'm from the middle of Michigan, which is kind of ironic because we have some inland lakes here, but there's no good walleye water here. I grew up fishing farm ponds with my grandpa. He had a farm pond on the farm full of bass. That's all that was in there was bass, and we'd go down there and catch bass on the I was like over there every day, so after school and stuff, we go catch bass, and it was just a great time. He actually grew up on the banks of Mississippi, so he always talked about fishing the Mississippi and all this stuff, and it always intrigued me. I didn't get into walleye fishing until well after high school, and once I bit that bug, it was a bad deal. It's all
so
over.
When you were growing up, were you always trying to find new places to fish? With you guys had some buddies and you guys hang out, or?
Yeah, we would do some things. I had some uncles that lived up north, and I had another uncle that would take me fishing. My dad, he had a bum knee. He hurt in the military. He didn't love fishing. He didn't love hunting. He still took us once in a while. We had to beg him, but he was not a big outdoors guy. He was more the car guy, right? Like that's what I do for a living is I'm a mechanic by trade. But my hobbies are fishing. Used to be hunting, but I've pretty much dialed that back to strictly fishing all the time, which is great.
Right. It's kind of funny because you have to when you're younger, 18 to 20s or whatever, you can kind of do all 18 to 24, whatever. You can do a lot of things, right? Because you have the energy to go. And then at a certain age, you got to kind of start dialing things back, especially now with the price of everything. You can't afford to be, got a top duck boat, you got a fishing boat, you got, saddles, you got all kinds of bows, all kind of stuff, and hunting guns and stuff. You got to kind of dial her back a little bit.
If you want to do it right, you gotta spend a little money in hunting. You can't just buy a Mossberg 12 gauge and go out and plug some deer, which you can, but if you want to be successful.
Yeah. But if you want to be the average weekend warrior, well, that's gonna be kind of tough. And it seems like now with the way pressure is, not only hunting but fishing, is you kind of have to put a little more time into it than just the weekend stuff. You gotta do a little research. You gotta, if it's doing your own tackle stuff, if it's doing just prepping your poles and things, everything is way different than what it used to be.
Yeah, you spend hours just rigging the night before, and then half the stuff you rig you don't use anyways. So,
right. So, what first got you into walleye fishing?
I had some good buddies that did it. My buddy Gabe, he fishes walleyes all over the place. He's actually the cameraman for Fishing 411 TV.
Nice.
So he kind of got me into the whole walleye thing, and it came to a point where I didn't want to stop. I couldn't stop. It's an addiction. It's like crack. You just keep going. So I just never stopped, and now we're here where we're at today, tournament fishing and trying to fish every day you can, and chase a little walleye around. But that's how I got into it. And he started fishing the Michigan Walleye Tour, and I was at the time an alternate, like an alternate in the team, because they had 2-man teams and you could have an alternate. I was signed up as an alternate. I never got to fish a tournament. I got to pre-fish. That kind of got me the bug into pre-fishing. And they opened it up to 3-man teams, and we took a go at it. But with Gabe's career with fishing 411, he can't dedicate the time that it takes, right? Because he get a phone call tomorrow, and then he's got to go film a show, So it's just how it works. So me and Jason Schlack we were the 3-man team, and me and Jason have kind of just taken it to a new level, I guess you could say. And we have a third partner last 2 years named Rob Jones. He comes over from Canada, actually. Wow. He lives an hour and a half across the border, and he comes over to fish our stuff over here. So it's kind of a fun little trail of how it all happened.
All right. So talk about the Michigan Walleye Tour. Where do you guys fish? How does it go about?
Obviously, it's the Michigan Walleye Tour. It's kind of I would say mid-range, right? It's not a cheap tournament to fish, but it's not a national event, right? It's still each event's right around $550 to join in. So we do have 3-man teams that kind of offsets a lot of the costs. Yeah. There's very few 2-man teams that fish the tour, but there is several. Their payouts are really good. It's $13,000 to win. We go all over the state. Actually, next year we're actually branching into Ohio, which is not the first time we've done it. Many years ago they fished in Ohio. That was before my time, but they're going back to Ohio. We're going to fish down around Cleveland, Lorain area. So that'll be very interesting. It's a good time of year to go down there. But we fished all the way this year. We went from Erie, Detroit River, Erie, all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie. We've been over to Escanaba once in the last couple of years, but we really don't venture over that side of the UP a lot. A lot of our core fishermen are from the southeast part of Michigan, like that Detroit area and that Saginaw Bay area, up a little bit further north in there. So once we start traveling further north, the numbers kind of dwindle. But when we see numbers dwindle, we're still pulling 100 boats a weekend, so that's pretty good. 150 is what we top out at.
Right, I've noticed that. That's a big commitment. That's a lot of people in that. I know you said it's more of a smaller trip, but 100 boats, 100 to 150 boats, a lot of people.
150 boats that's a big deal, right? So if you're trying to make the championship, we take the top 40. You can't screw up when it's a 150 boat field. You gotta make sure you know what you're doing and make sure you're on them. So it's kind of a fun little twist.
So how's the 3-man boat like?
It's not bad. Me, Rob, and Jason, we get along great. Someone's got to sit in the back. Usually I volunteer for that because that's the smoothest ride. Obviously, we fish Lake Huron a lot, and that's a rough lake. So if we communicate well, we all get along well. We travel with another team. They're a 3-man team too, so that offsets a lot of the travel costs and stuff. But we all get along great. It's a brotherhood, it's really cool. But when we get into certain situations, Detroit River a lot of time is vertical jigging or trolling. That's not a big deal. Sometimes when you're trying to live scope 3 guys, one guy's going to be like the sacrificial lamb in the back. But we work well together. We can rotate in and out, and we are trollers by trade. Like that's just what we're super comfortable doing it, and most of the time that's what we try to find is the trolling bite. We're one of the rare ones still in the tournament field that still tries to do that, but we do love every aspect of it. If it's vertical jigging, scoping, trolling, whatever it is.
So does that mean you can have more lines then with the 3 of them?
We're topped out at 6, so 6 lines total. No matter what, unless we go to Canada, right? So in Canadian waters, we have a little issue with that. There are only 2 lines per angler. So if you have 4 or 2 guys in the boat, you're only allowed 4 lines, but we fish 3. So if we go to Canada, we can fish 6 lines.
That makes sense. That's weird to me that the whole 3-man boat. I fished a couple tournaments, but they're kind of like spring or fall kind of tournaments. But having a 3rd man in the boat seems, I don't know, it seems like it'd be fun, but at the same time, you're like, it depends on what you're doing. Like you said, if you're live scoping, somebody's kind of always hosed, basically, even if you have 2 scopes on there. But I mean, then again, if you're doing the, one's on it, one's casting behind it kind of game, I could see that too as well.
And a lot of times where we fish like Alpena, there's a lot of rock fish, right? So sometimes the scope isn't that big of a deal. Right. If they're hunkered down on the rocks, you can't scope them. So you just have to kind of blind cast to them. But we fished the championship out of Port Austin this year, and we ran up to Alpena. That's 68-ish, 70 miles on Lake Huron. Fun little boat ride. And once we got up there, so we trolled it. Everyone else was casting, but we found a trolling bite. And the 3rd guy was necessary because we'd have doubles and triples on, and you're trying to net fish. We have 2 nets in the boat. And someone's always unhooking, someone's reeling. It was pretty chaotic.
I suppose that way, you're rolling through fish. That'd make life a lot easier because a lot of times if you're in a tournament and you're a Tuya and you're trolling, you got downtime. Like you don't have that extra guy who would actually help to be able to reset lines and all that kind of fun stuff. Otherwise, you get 2 fish on, you're pretty much dead in the water for Tuya. Right?
Another guy out there 2 fish on, what are you going to do? Reel one in a little bit, shove it back in the rod holder, and hope you get the board off, and you're not messing around and losing a fish. But the 3rd man is the reason they did it is, my understanding is, this is before I was totally involved, is the numbers were going down. So they said, well, let's make it a 3-man team that will offset a lot of costs. And it really does. When you start splitting up, a full season is $2,200. You start splitting that up with 3 guys and gas, and we know these boats like to eat gas. That's one thing they do well, is eat gas. So
right, especially on that big water. Especially in that big water when you're using you're using everything you can to get out there. If it's zip wakes or whatever you got. That once you engage those zip wakes, them tabs, that price of that they start burning some gas super fast. Then
Oh yeah.
I always joke that I burn more gas with my wife to make sure it's comfortable for her. If not, I'll do a little chop.
That's very true. Very true. And the cool thing about all three of us is all three of us have Rangers, right? I've got the smallest one at the 620, but they both have 621. So it's kind of like who lives closer, what kind of fishing are we going to do, whose boat we're going to take. So a lot of times we end up with two at the event, so we can split up and pre-fish and just add. So it's a pretty neat little avenue we have here of how we do it. But
right, yeah, you guys. I mean, you don't fish. Everything you fish is big water. I mean, even Detroit River, I'd consider that's big. That's big water, right? I mean,
in a south wind, it gets big quick. It gets big quick. It's even when it's calm. That's you're looking at 30 miles of river. In some places, it's wide. You can't see between all the islands and shipping channels, and it gets hairy in the lower end. The upper end, the north end, I would say is a little more narrow, more quote unquote riverish. But there's parts in the bottom that are more like Lake Erie. It goes out quite a bit and it widens out quite a bit at the bottom.
So what's your favorite way to fish?
My favorite way to fish, I love scoping. I love it. It's a blast, but honestly, it's pulling offshore boards. It's trolling. I love trolling. Like it's the challenge of figuring the fish out, and I don't make it boring. We're switching baits up, we're switching lead lengths, and it's a lot of guys will talk about just driving around looking at boards, but we switch it up as much as we can, switching baits in and out, doing all kinds of stuff. That's where my roots are, is trolling. I absolutely love it. Vertical jigging's pretty fun too. You get on a good vertical jigging bite on the Detroit River and some shallow water, it's pretty tough to beat. But if you get the trolling thing figured out, you got doubles and triples going all day. That's a riot. And I've got two small. I've got 4 kids, but 2 of them are still at that age where one's 5. Obviously, we're not doing nothing crazy with him because we're all going to end up with hooks somewhere. So trolling for him is perfect. He can play hopscotch in the boat and do all kinds of stuff and reel in fish when it's his turn, and it's awesome. He loves it.
Right. I kind of feel like that we're going to see the return. I know it's going to go away here for a bit, reluctantly on the tournament scene for most part, but I have a feeling it's going to come back. I think that these fish, we keep doing different things to them and these sounds, and we're going to keep burning their brains with all these radar bings off their head, and eventually they're going to kind of figure, in some of these bodies of waters, they're going to get sick of that. And if you can come over with your boards, I remember when I first started fishing, there wasn't any forward-faced sonar, but the farther you get your boards out, get them away, get them in quiet water, get the smaller boards you have, your shallower water, and then once you got off the kickers and you can get on the trolling motor, so it's super quiet, right? All that things helped. And I'm just wondering if we're going to come back to that in some time when these fish just keep getting beat up with all the different sonar pings off their heads, if that's going to come back around for us in 5-6 years. Yeah,
I wonder that too. And honestly, I think it will, right? Like, trolling's never going nowhere. I'm not going to take my 5-year-old out and put him in front of a live, although he's probably better at it than I am. Put him in front of a live scope and say, catch that fish, That's just not going to happen. In order for me to get him into fishing, I got to take him out. I got to troll with him.
Yep.
We fish bluegills with bobbers all the time. Troll with him if it's perch in the big lake or whatever. But trolling just seems to be the best because he wants to catch walleyes. Like he wants to. He knows I go away for a week at a time, or sometimes 4 or 5 days. But what's Dad doing? He's walleye fishing. Well, I want to be like Dad. I want to go walleye fishing. So, and that's the easiest way for me to get him involved and keep that generation going. Where the scoping's cool, it really is. But you get more than 2 guys in the boat, it gets pretty sporty quick. Especially if you throw a little breeze in there.
So, did you dive into it right away, or were you a holdout, or where were you on the scoping world?
I had my boat was all rigged with Lowrance's. Pretty much right away, I went and got an active target and started playing with it to see what we could do different, how we could do it, and we actually use them in trolling. I've now switched to Garmin. I still have my Lowrance's for mapping in 2D. I really like them for that. But I use the Garmin for the live scope, but we use it all the time. Like if we're fishing, the Garmin's in. If it's vertical jigging, trolling, casting, even a lot of times with the Detroit River, we hand line a lot. And we could use the live scope for hand lining to see exactly where the fish were going to be set up, so we could slide the boat up and down the banks to see to contact with them.
So are you using the live scope as you troll too as well? So you're kind of using it for where they're setting up how they're reacting to your baits?
Well, what we found is when you mark them on 2D, like when you go over them at speed, you mark them at the right depth, right? Because you're flying over them. But
Yep.
a lot of times, if we get outside of Lake Erie and Saginaw Bay, our water gets really clean really fast up here. So, like, especially in Alpena, you know, that Oscoda area, that's super clear, clean water. Well, these fish are boat shy. So they'll drop down. We'll be marking them at 20 feet. When we're pulling baits at 20 feet, we're not catching any fish. Well, you put the live scope up. Oh, they're at 10. But when the boat comes, they slide down and then they slide back up. So set your baits right. It's really a tool, right? No matter which way you fish with it, it's just a tool. I can't figure out how to make it work as a cheater box. I've been trying, but it don't put fish in the boat, you know. So
right. It's pretty funny when people talk about that. And you know, I think I'm in my 4th year with a live scope, and I still think I'm, you know, a year or two behind. I just don't have the time behind it, right? And I fished, you know, 4 or 5 days. It wasn't until maybe last year where I decided to buy in and really get behind it and really make it number one in the boat and kind of put the troll in second. You know, I love trolling, and kind of was one of the things where I just wasn't putting the size of fish in the boat, and for tournament time, and kind of feel like I had to go to live scope and kind of target more of those bigger fish. But at the same token, it's just like, man, you know, you're not catching as many fish. It's tough to go a day, you know, with your live scope, and you're like, okay, we got 6 hours to catch 5 fish. We're gonna go sit and do nothing not nothing, but you're gonna grind away for 40 minutes to get a mark to bite. And it's awesome when it happens, but sometimes it's not, you know, people think it's just you go out there, throw it down, and you start catching fish like crazy. The one thing you do when you turn it on is you learn like crazy. I mean, you learn so much. I was at a new lake for myself on Saturday. I really wanted to work on fishing fish in the weeds, right? It was the greatest experience. I didn't catch one fish out of them weeds with a live scope, but I saw them all. I figured some things out, and I was able to kind of learn, okay, this is what they're doing. My bait comes, they're coming up, they don't want, I got to find different ways. But you learn so much. You learn more about the fish than you actually catch fish, I think, at first.
Oh, absolutely. So we were fishing the championship up in Sault Ste. Marie, been 3 years ago, and we pre-fished. We gave it a whole day, and it's 5 o'clock. We didn't touch the fish yet. It was really tough fishing that year, and we're like, what are we going to do? It's going to blow the next 2 days. One of the days is going to get canceled. We don't know what's going on yet. So we actually got lucky and vertical jigged. We caught a fish, and we're like, whoa. I had active target 1 at the time, so it's pretty primitive. We put that down, we started looking around. I said, there's fish everywhere. They're here. They're just, the bite windows were really small. So that's where we spent our fishing time. It was a mile from the launch, where everyone else was running 40 to 45 miles away. We went an hour from the launch. We ended up taking 11th. We just missed one good bite, right? We had one we couldn't get rid of, a 2.5 pound fish, but still that tool was key to let us know that there's more than just one lonely walleye swimming around here.
Right.
But
That's true. What do you take from the bass doing their split season next year?
Yeah, boy, that's really hard to say because they're sponsored by all the big electronics companies. So, well, I don't know how they're going to react to it. You know, it's going to take one of them young kids that can only fish with a Garmin and live scope to come out and win a traditional style bass tournament to really change everyone's mind. Where the quote unquote cheater box, which, if you've ever used it, you know it's not even that. But you got them old guys, right? They probably said the same thing about GPS when it came out. They probably said the same thing about side scan. Like, I can't believe we're using the side scan. GPS, you don't have to line up the water tower and the oak tree, and it's one of those things. Like, every time new technology comes out, a new bait comes out, whatever it is, someone's going to find something to complain about, unfortunately. But I'm curious to see how the bass do it. I'd really like to see some of them young guns win a couple traditional style tournaments, and then I think you'll have a whole nother conversation going on. But it's interesting. You know, I don't think the live stuff that Bass does, where people say they don't like to watch people stare at a screen. I mean, he's either staring at a screen or he's casting and blind casting and not catching anything. You know, like
Right? Yeah.
6 to 1, half dozen the other, in my opinion. You know, like when
That's
head to head was on. I love watching head to head. If they're scoping or not scoping, it didn't matter. I'd watch it.
Dude, that's the first, and I'm not gonna lie here. And I used to think of that Michigan fishing was kind of garbage in a way, because all I could think of, people talk about like, oh, they're the Detroit. I'm like, who's gonna fish in Detroit? Are you kidding me? And then head to head went there, and I'm like, oh, bucket list. That's on my bucket list. You don't have to, you know, because you don't really. I guess I kind of, as growing up in Wisconsin, you're like, okay, well, they have Lake Erie, kind of a little bit of it, and they have obviously what we have and the UP, and then they have the Detroit River, but it's got to be dirty, right? And then watching how they did it, and I wish that would come back, because they just seem to set everything up more. Like what I'm not a big fan of is like, so you watch, you know, the tour level gold or all these other things that they have out there, the NWT, they don't actually talk about fishing. They're just there to push their sponsors, push the community, which is cool, but they don't actually talk to anything about what they do. Even actually you guys with your Michigan TV one does more about that than anybody else does, right? And that's what I loved about head to head. I mean, I started doing the podcast because I actually just like listening to the guys talk on the boat. I'm like, hey, shouldn't that be just a podcast? Just talk fishing and just randomly listen to Max or Joe Okada, Isaac, just randomly talking thoughts, sitting on the Michigan, Detroit River. To me, that's awesome. That's the best part of it.
Oh, I loved it. We were pre-fishing when they were pre-fishing, so we could use live bait. They couldn't. So, and they couldn't talk or communicate. So it was a couple of the anglers. We'd be fishing right next to them. And they were like, "Don't say a word," you know. And we're stroking fish, but they could see we were using minnows at the time, and they were like, "Oh yeah, minnows. You can't use them." That's what it's going to take here right now, unfortunately. But, you know, even when they came, it opened. So traditionally, the Detroit River was a complete jig bite, right? Like vertical jig or hand line. You did nothing else. If you did anything else, you were a weirdo. Like, I mean, it'd come to like, it's combat fishing sometimes down there.
Yeah.
Well, you start watching Joe Okada and these guys, and they're trolling the river. And I'm like, what's going on here? Well, and then you start talking to some of the tournament anglers. Well, yeah, that might be a thing here and there, and then that kind of turned us on to a new way to fish the Detroit River. So, which was great. Like, it is a great way to fish the Detroit River. I'm so glad Head to Head came, and Isaac was casting in the Detroit River. Yeah. Well, now you go down, you get in a traditional what we call a drift. You know, you just drift down vertical jig, and some of these guys are casting and.
Oh, there you go.
This is a spam call, Comcast. I don't even have Comcast.
No problem. So we were talking about how fishing and head to head fishing come to your town and change how fishing happens in your town.
Oh, 100%. 100% changed everything from casting to trolling in the Detroit River. And it's pretty neat to see the evolution of how that happens, right? Because traditionally, the Detroit River, you jigged 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce jigs vertically, and you really didn't veer from that much, but it was pretty cool to watch them guys do that.
Right. It's crazy. Everybody comes in like we had an NWT at my home waters, and I jumped in it a few years ago, and I'm like, hey, got to do something different. A lot of pressure, do something different. So I, thought I got outside of my box, did things I normally didn't do, fish areas I normally didn't fish. Did okay, finished the top half or whatever. But David Landsteiner, Delta Walleye, literally fished a spot that I talked about being, I didn't tell him to fish it, but it was just a community hole, right? And he guy takes some of a top 10 finish, and I'm like, within 2 miles of landing, I'm like, motherfucker. Like, I fished that spot for years, and I never even, I'm like, nope, it's not going to, you got to find something different, Matt. You got to do something different. Get outside your comfort zone, which, I mean, has helped me in other places, but, that was kind of a kick in the nuts.
Yeah, it's kind of neat how that happens, right? Like, you went to a community hole and you did what?
Right. Well, yeah, there's a lot of those where you see people go into, I remember there was a tournament at Pete and Well over here, and people were like, well, the guides are going to catch all kinds of fish, and I get it, but I kind of think the guides, they're not looking, it's a different kind of fish they're looking for, right? They're looking for daily eaters, and we know daily eaters in 26 inches don't generally roam together. And these pros came in there and just absolutely mopped the floor of them. I'm like, oh man, that's got to be a terrible feeling that you guide all the time, and these guys come in and been there for a week, and they just destroy your leg up for you. And see you later. I'm seeing a couple of years.
Detroit River is like that. So there's a ton of guides in the Detroit River, and I always tell my guide buddies, if you see me on Saturday or Sunday, my day has went really bad. Don't talk to me, because I hope I'm not up around the guide holes, because that's all they are. They're all males and they're just racking through them. They catch some good fish once in a while. Don't get me wrong, but as the migration moves, the spawning migration. But I'm trying to target those fish as they're coming in and out of Lake Erie or sometimes Lake St. Clair. That water, if it gets dirty, the water up in St. Clair will clean up quicker because of the way it flows. So we do sometimes have to run up to St. Clair and fish kind of up there, but we launch right at the mouth, the lower mouth right in Lake Erie. So it works out really, really well because that's where I want to be anyways, for the most part.
Right. So what's Michigan fishing like in general? I mean, you have some of the best walleye waters. What's the inlands like? What else is around there that really gets people going for walleye fishing?
Well, the lower part, right? We'll say lower Michigan, the inland lakes are not very walleye friendly. They're really heavily populated. A lot of good weekend spots. You want to go hang out and swim and tube. That's the place to go. Once you start getting up in the northern inland waters, the fishing gets really, really good again. But a lot of those lakes don't handle a lot of pressure. Where we have, we're surrounded by Great Lakes, obviously. Yep. So Detroit River gets its migration in the spring. That kind of comes and goes. The St. Clair River is about a month behind. Those fish kind of come and go. There's always resident fish there all the time, but nobody fishes them. As soon as the month of May hits, everyone's out of the rivers. They're into the lakes. They're into Lake Erie, Lake St. Clair. Saginaw Bay is really good in the spring and fall for big, big fish. But those fish will migrate up to where you hear about the Alpena fish and the detour area fish. Those fish push up there. They summer up there, and then they come back in the fall. I mean, obviously there's resident fish everywhere we go, but usually they come right back to Saginaw Bay and they work their way back around Detroit River. And these fish do not sit still. They are moving machines, But most of the time the inland waterways, like we have a Saginaw River that's what we consider an inland waterway. That's decent. You can catch fish year round there, but obviously spring and fall, you'll get the chase the bait in the fall up into the river, and then in the spring they're obviously spawning. But we're pretty liberal with limits. Like Saginaw Bay is 13 inches, 8 fish.
Jesus.
You're catching perch and walleye are the same size, but they're pretty liberal. Lake Erie, 6 fish. We have a major population of fish. There's no doubt about it. But like up north in Alpena, obviously that's Alpena. We know the National Walleye Tour was there, and we know Isaac. He made the mega run, which that's crazy, but good for him. But there is a lot of fish there, right there locally. A lot of the top 10 probably fished within sight of the boat launch. I can almost assure you of that, because there's good fish everywhere up there. But it's a pressure thing up there, right? So those clear water situations don't handle the pressure like they would in Saginaw Bay. If the fishing was good in Saginaw Bay, because it's a dirtier, shallower bay. But
that's fair. Is it kind of like a muddy bay kind of thing of the?
Yeah, it's kind of like a muck bottom. There's not a lot of sand over here, rocks down in the Saginaw Bay area, but once you get to the outer bay, you start getting into the rock and that type of thing. But a lot of weeds, a lot of muck. If you know how to handle weeds, the big fish are there year round. But it's tougher than going out into the basin in 20 feet of water and just marking them and catching them.
Right. So what do you troll when you're out there in the basins? Just stick baits or bandits?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah, bandits, real popular bait. Flicker minnows. The Bill Lewis baits are coming on pretty strong here recently. Mark Romanek helped design that. He's from Michigan. He'd say probably his home water is probably Saginaw Bay-ish area. Those have been working really good. And then they got the little one, the Bill Lewis Light. That's been a phenomenal bait for the last 2 years for us. Really, really like that bait. But yeah, your traditional like stick baits, minnow baits. Obviously, crawler harnesses are pretty popular. And everyone's pulling crawlers. As soon as the water hits 50, we got to switch over to crawlers because the fish stop eating minnows at that point.
Right.
Just chase worms around. I'm not a firm believer in that, but I do troll crawlers once in a while. But I'd rather fish crankbaits that you're not messing around.
Yeah, if I can keep live bait off the boat, I'm a pretty happy man.
Chicken and crawler now, right? Like
Right. I mean, yeah, you go back to what we did as kids, right? And I get it, but yeah, it's you know what else is funny that I think I would probably blame Lake Erie and you guys for all the different custom painted lures we now have. It felt like nobody else was really around here, wasn't doing much, and all of a sudden you see these 7,000 Lake Erie colors that are coming out of your guys' woods over there. I'm like, what the hell are all these colors for? And I was like, it's just an onslaught. Now every lake has 40, 50 colors that you have to fish that lake. Even if it's Winnebago or Poygan or Green Bay, everybody has their own colors now. I kind of feel like Lake Erie's to blame for that.
Yeah, that's probably where that all started, honestly. Obviously, I'm good friends with the painter over at JT Customs, so we talk about this all the time. You know, it's guys like the new colors, right?
Hey listeners, let's talk outdoor streaming. What is the best outdoor streaming platform out there? Well, it's simple. It's Fix TV. Not only do they have this great program, but they have all kinds of hunting and fishing shows along with some weaponry shows. So when you get bored and need something to do, get your fix with Fix TV.
Yeah.
Guys love colors. We're as bad as women are with shoes when it comes to colors. You know, we got to have the new, we got to have the hot bait, you know.
Right.
You can't walk into a bait shop and be like, oh, I don't have that one. Oh, I better get two. Well, if I get two, I might as well get four, you know.
You know that's a very true statement because I around here we don't use big baits, everything smaller, Selmos, flicker shads, things like that. But like I haven't trolled, I think all yet this year, right? And I love trolling Selmos, boxes and boxes. I've probably bought a dozen Selmos this year because I've seen new colors come. I'm like, okay, I gotta have a couple of those. I gotta have that one. That one looks great. I just want that because it looks cool, right? And maybe someday I'll use, maybe I won't. I don't know, but it's hard to turn them down. Like I said, even if you know you're not going out to do that, you still grab that color.
I have a box of brand new baits that like I travel with, and they're literally in the package in a big cardboard box, and I put them in the truck every time just in case, you know, because last thing I want to do is find a hot color and be like,
right,
I got 12 of them sitting on the shelf at home, but none here. We gotta go buy them, you know.
Right, that's why I get the markers out. I go a little crazy the markers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Draw all kinds of stuff on them. We do that with hair jigs too.
Yeah, hair jigs making a comeback too.
Yeah, they're effective. I mean, all this stuff that's worked for years is, well, look at some of these search baits that are coming out. If you go back in time, Erie Dairy, 100% Erie Dairy, you know.
Actually, there was a place, it's called Mosier's, an old store. And there's a little podunk town just about 40 minutes from me. And they recently closed down, but I went there before they closed down because my dad used to take me as a kid. And they had two old things of Erie Dairies when they just staple them to the board, right? And you just peel them off. I'm like, I'm just buying them all. Someday I'll use them. But I mean, it's literally like every search bait. I see Berkeley I saw their new one today. Everybody has them. They're all coming out with them. And then
forward spinner. 100%.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. Everything kind of comes back again, right? Everything, jig in the minnow. I mean, jig in a crawler.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. As long as a paper graph doesn't come back, we're all set. You know what I mean? I don't think we'll go backwards on that one, but the tackle stuff kind of cycles through, right? Like, right. And obviously when Bandits came out, the Husky jerks didn't stop working. You know, like we just as anglers can tend to gravitate to different things and in our minds. And maybe some of it is sometimes too, the fish kind of get conditioned to seeing some certain things, but where we're at, it's different degrees of catching out here. Yeah. It's not a tough bite. I think if you take a lot of the Michigan anglers, sometimes, you know, your weekend guys, if you put them in any other situation, it's bad because you can't just be silly and still catch fish. You know, like you gotta kind of know what you're doing when you get outside of Saginaw Bay and Lake Erie. You know.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say that, but I mean, it's like anywhere you fish that's good fishing, though, it's tough. I mean, you know, no different if you're, you know, spring fishing in Green Bay, right? Or, you know, or in Detroit River, that's different. You know, everybody grows up in different spots. And I was used to, a lot of guys on the tour back in the days came from Winnebago because Winnebago, it's almost impossible to catch a fish the same way 2 days in a row. It's, you know, it's very difficult because the lake is, I don't know, it just doesn't like us or something. It's angry, right? So it takes a lot to stay consistent on that lake. And some of these other places, like you guys in Lake Erie, I get it. But it's kind of unfair at some point. You guys aren't catching enough fish. You know, what worries me though is you see the projections for that lake, and if they don't start taking more fish off that lake, there's a problem coming, right?
I mean, it's insane, isn't it?
It's I saw one thing that they wanted to take 9 million walleyes or something crazy out, and you guys aren't even halfway there, and I'm like, whew, gonna need some commercial fishings to fire up pretty soon because otherwise, if you population out, then you're going to have just a huge bust, right? I mean,
Yeah, it'll be stunted growth. And we have all of our tournaments over here are kill tournaments, right?
Yeah, right. I know.
We don't live release fish. We bring them in alive because they weigh more. But we don't live release them. There's usually enough people or organizations around that you can donate your fish to. I'm not cleaning fish after a day of tournament fishing, but somebody else does, so it works out great.
Right.
They can do with it what they want. But yeah, we don't have live release because of that reason, because the population's so big.
Yeah, it's crazy to me thinking that you guys just can't catch enough, right? And it just, or people don't keep it. I mean, and because the limits are very liberal. I mean, you can go out there and stock up for the whole year, basically.
Well, we're only allowed like 2 limits in our freezer per license, So Ohio's unlimited from my understanding. So Ohio's super liberal, right? 6 fish, unlimited. So they load right up on their freezers, but we got to kind of keep it within check. Everyone in my household does have a license, so I usually try to keep it there. But it's never a problem to find someone to take a couple walleyes off your hands.
Right. So do you think stuff and fish was only made possible because there was no live release?
Yeah.
There would no way they could keep those alive.
No. Right. And it's hard to keep these fish alive when you make these big runs across these nasty lakes. But yeah, that's 100% how that works is right. If that was a live release tournament, there's no possible way. Right. You always hear the stuff in water, like injecting water. I've heard of that for a couple of years now. And I've never seen. We actually, what the Michigan Walleye Tour does is pretty cool. Is the top 3. No matter where you are, if you're the first 3, you're the top 3 fish. But we also weigh a big fish. If you're in the top 3 of any of those, they cut your fish. You go over to a tent, they examine them, they cut them open. You donate them or keeping them. That's what they do.
Either way, they're getting cut, right? I mean, either way they're getting cut. It almost doesn't matter, I guess. I mean, I guess in their case, they were taking everything that, right? They weren't donating anything.
Yeah.
So
that should be. And the only bad thing is if you've had a bad day and you're one of the first 3 anglers to come in, they're cutting a bunch of 15-inch fish open. Like, come on, guys! Like, we know what's behind you. Let me go. Let me go home and soak in this. So,
well, you gotta. It's funny. There was a tournament in town. Is Battle on Bagel. They used to have actually, I think it was the Otter Street. They used to have a separate place that if you didn't catch a fish, you had to go, drop this coin off at this other place. You couldn't even come with the rest of the people. I'm like, God, that is terrible. It's tough. It's tough zeroing as it is, and everybody's done it, right? But it's tough when it's tournament day and you zero. And I mean, it gets to some extent, like if you're going for a big win and you're, down or whatever, it's one thing. But just zeroing it and you worked hard. That's deep down. That cuts hard. Makes you wonder about fish.
I told my wife the last tournament, I said, well, if I come home and sell everything, don't ask me how it went. If you see marketplaces loaded up with fishing gear from me, don't ask me how it went.
Right. I mean, there always is those times, right? I mean, I'm sure you've had numerous times. I feel like I go through that once or twice a year. I'm just like, I'll get back and, I usually the night after tournament or whatever, I back the boat in and plug it in basically. And I'm going to come back, the next day and I'll go through everything. And I'll just sit there the next night after work and just stare at everything, wondering what went wrong. What happened?
Absolutely. Even if so sometimes you're fishing next to the guys that won it and you were middle of the pack. Well, what were they doing different? What did I miss? How did I miss it? What was it, a current thing? Was it, water temperature thing? I always use that as learning experience, right? Go back, let's figure it out. Because usually if the guys do well, they're gonna talk about something. They're gonna give you a little nugget somewhere. You'll be able to catch it up on a Facebook post or talking at the weigh-in. You get that little nugget, and then you can kind of figure out, okay, what did we miss? And that's what we've used over the last few years. Is we were always like really good on day 1, and day 2 we were like suck. So it's like, all right, we got to figure this out. Like, what are we missing on day 2? What adjustments are we not making?
Yeah.
And luckily this year we've been able to make most of those adjustments, except for Sault Ste. Marie. I had to do the walk of shame with the coin. Dink. Have a nice day.
Yeah, that's it's tough. I mean, I started off the year great. We started off great. Had a really good year. Everything was going great. About through the half of the year, cashing checks pretty regularly, and then all of a sudden the bottom just fell out. And I kind of thought of it at the end, or as I got through it, I'm like, I think I'm just burnt out. I think it got to a point where I was doing so many tournaments. It was still fun to me, but I wasn't putting the same amount of work in it. Right. And I got to the same, like 3 weeks in a row in the same body of water. And I wasn't pre-fishing as hard as I probably should, and wasn't really looking out. I was trusting more memories and stuff. And it just came back to bite me square in the ass. And I'm like, oh man, you just get, those weeks when you're off, I think there's a stretch in the summer where it's basically a month, and I don't work much at anything. I save up my whole year just to kind of fish, right? And towards the end of that, it's tough sometimes. I just want to break.
Yeah,
but that same token, every year I look forward to that month, right? I look forward to getting burned out at the end, to being on the water every single day for basically a month, and then it's like, oh, and you get there and you're like, I think I have to start like lifting weights or doing mental usasa in the morning or something to keep fired up.
It was after the Sault Ste. Marie tournament this year. We were on our way home, and my buddy, he guides up in the Alpena area, and he figured out this jig and lake trout bite, and it's awesome. He's like, "You guys want to go jig some lake trout on the way home?" Absolutely. Went and caught some lake trout. We're all smiling like school kids again. It's like catching bluegills, but they're huge lake trout, and 150 foot of water, jigging them. It was a blast. Okay, we redeemed ourselves a little bit, but I've had them tough weeks where it's like, oh, do I know how to catch a fish? Like, what is going on here? Why can I not?
Yeah. So what's with why tournament fishing? Why do you love it so much?
Well, growing up playing sports, doing all that type of stuff, and then after that, I played church league softball and some like flag football stuff for adults, which was more like tackle without pads. Yeah. So when you come to an age and you realize you can't do that anymore because you have to go to work, right? Well, I've never hurt myself so bad fishing that I couldn't go to work. So hey, let's do that. I just love the competition, the camaraderie, and mainly it's the pre-fishing. That you spend 4 or 5 days with the guys, some really good friends. You're eating good food, and it's just great. The conversation, the camaraderie, and then you throw a little competition in there too. It makes it all the better. Hopefully you win enough money to pay your gas bill. Most likely that doesn't happen a lot of times, but occasionally it does. You get one good one and it covers the year, so you're good. Yeah. But it's the competition. It's the figuring out the fish, and really it's not like you against a bunch of other anglers. It's you against the fish. Like, how can I figure out what these fish are doing and how they're doing it? So it's and that's 100% what drives it. This is the competition. I love it. I love competing. And we have a lot of national tour guys that fish our tournament. So I'll look at the roster. Did I beat Nick Schertz? Did I beat John Gilman? I always joke with John Gilman and his team, like, my goal is to beat you guys every tournament. If I do that, that to me is a win. Sometimes it happens. Most of the time it doesn't, but I like to try.
That is true. I do remember that one of the first tournaments I was in, Corey Spranga was in it, and I ended up beating him pretty handily. And I'm thinking to myself, hell yeah, I could do this. And then I went on to watch him go on to success, and it's like the opposite. For that one day, it's like, hey, that one day I had something figured out more than he did for that day. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, you get that.
Dylan Nussbaum fishes the Detroit River tournament. When you're up against him, and it's like, wow, that's Dylan Nussbaum. Obviously Dylan is a stud stick. If you can go up against him and you can compete against him, obviously it's Detroit River. Like, we probably have the upper hand with some of the local knowledge and stuff, but it's still like it's a confidence booster. You beat someone like that. It's pretty awesome.
Right. So do you have any aspirations to go any higher levels or fish any?
I definitely do. I need to get one more kid out of this house. I got 3 that are still in the side. One's in college, but so we get one more out of high school, and I think it can happen. These girls are expensive, man. I tell you what, like my girls, I love them to death, but man, they cost me a fortune. I tell them all the time, like, you're the reason I don't have a brand new boat every year. You're the reason. They think I'm joking, but I'm really not. But my daughter's really big into sports. She just said she's a freshman this year, so we gotta get her up through the ranks, and I think we probably will. But we've looked at some Masters tournaments and talked about doing some of those. But there's some national stuff that I'd really like to do. I know they were in Alpena last year. I really should have probably done that, but it's a cost thing, it's
Yeah.
a lot of money to get in. We had a tournament right after that. I knew we were gonna have to spend a week up in Dessous. It's like, geez, time off. Luckily my job gives me all the time off I want. Only so much of it's paid, obviously, but
Right.
but you got to take into effect too. I still need some family vacations, and my wife likes to camp. We call it camping in Michigan. Most people call it glamping. We got air fryers and toasters and waffle makers. We eat better when we camp than we're at home.
That's right.
And so I got to make sure that I keep time for them. And but soon I think I'll venture off, and I don't want to be the guy that just does one. I don't want to do one, or
Yeah.
if I'm going to do it, I'd like to do at least half a season and be
Right.
someplace that I've never gone before. I think it'd be kind of interesting.
And that's the thing too. It's not, I've done I think all of them now once or twice, but it's not really I guess it's not like it's the time. You almost have to get rid of the ones you already fish, right? Like your local ones and the ones that I grew up doing and love doing. And that comes to where my problem is. Okay, I have like this bar tournament that I've been fishing forever, and it's it's Oshkosh's best sticks, but that also takes time away from going to this other one. Or if it's these other living in Oshkosh, we have Winnebago and Green Bay, so we have all these great tournaments that I have just a lot of memories and time and fishing that I don't want to give up to go someplace else. And it makes it tough to go, okay, if I want to do the NWT on Mississippi River this year, I have to give up this tournament. Like, I really like that tournament. That's one me and my son fish with. And, we always do really well in that tournament. So do I have to give that up, or, and that's what kind of gets me all the time. It's not necessarily the time, because I obviously devote a lot of time to fishing anyways. It's just the tournaments, which ones to fish and which ones to go all in on.
I fish Thunder Bay Walleye Club up in Alpena. Like, there's a couple events up there that I really enjoy. One of them is called Night Eyes. We launched about at 6 p.m. and half of it's during the daylight, half of it's at night, and it's just a riot. Like a riot, So you're casting in the morning and the daylights, then we'll switch over to trolling at night, and it's just an absolute riot. And it pulls 30 to 40 boats. It's not huge, but the payout, they got some decent sponsors, they got some decent payouts. But that's one of those that I don't want to give that up. I look forward to that tournament more than any tournament of the year. Like, I go up there, it's same thing, camaraderie. You don't have to rush around in the morning. You get up at your own pace, drink coffee, and relax, and then say, okay, I guess we go fishing now. So that's one I don't want to give up. But I love the Michigan Walleye Tour. It's the biggest circuit in around here. We don't have anything else, so it's great. I don't want to give that up just yet. I love my guys that I fish with, so not yet, but someday I'm going to have to, grow up, I guess, and venture out a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of forces you to do other things, forces you to learn other things too. I think you learn more when you go other places, right? You can, if you went and fished Alpine and you haven't fished there before, and take that back to someplace else, or a little knowledge that you've learned at different places, and put a little bit of that into your local home waters or another water, and really kind of figure things out more.
Well, yeah, the Upper Lake Huron fishes a lot like Green Bay, right? Like Chambers Island, the rocks situation. We got the rocks over here, like a lot of that stuff transfers. I do not want to go learn how to deal with willow cats. That's one thing I don't want to do. But, some of these river tournaments and stuff, I'm like, man, we fish a lot of rivers over here. It's got to be close to the same. Yep. We don't have wing dams, but we have big rivers, big working rivers. We deal with freighters and freighter traffic all the time. So it's got to be pretty close.
Right. Yeah. I've been so close. I did the AIM series for a few years. I've been so close to jumping in to the river series, because I just love river fishing. So I actually did a ton of prep for the NWT at Mississippi and La Crosse. At the end, I just I didn't have time to do it. And so I went over there the fall and spent a ton of time over there. And it is a whole different world. Like, I grew up on a river myself, but it wasn't a working river. I didn't have wing dams, cutbacks, all this kind of stuff to watch out for, not tear your motors off. I actually just saw a TikTok the other day of a guy hit a wing dam, and everything from the black down was gone, ripped off. And I'm like, oh my God. But all these things learning, like, I got there and I run Garmin electronics, Garmin maps. Although literally the Garmin is the guy that mapped the country, they're kind of behind in some of their maps, some places, right? And so I was a little scared going in there. So I actually put a Humminbird on, just to have a different card on, to make sure I didn't hit nothing. And we went back into some sloughs. We got stuck. We had to get out and push the boat. I took a big 21-foot yard craft back in some backwaters, and I probably shouldn't have been back there, but it was super cool. And I'm like, I gotta fish this river stuff, this big river stuff more often, because it's just there's so much things to it, and it's kind of like it's all. And maybe it's a thing that, or I see that's it's a live scope kind of equalizer to a point. Those big rivers aren't as clean as some of our smaller inland rivers, right? So there's a lot more flow, a lot more garbage coming down. You can kind of see fish, but you kind of can't either. So I just love that river style of fishing. And you give me let me cast a crankbait all day long. I'm a happy man.
Yeah, like that to me, I was like, wow, Mississippi River, that might set up all right, because Detroit River and St. Clair, Saginaw, like it's kind of a mixture of all of them. And but it's just my time off. If I had unlimited time off or something like that, it'd be a no-brainer. But
and you guys use some big ass weights over there too, which is crazy to me. Over here, we have deepish waters, but if you're running 3/8, if you can get down to quarter, life's good and you're catching fish. You guys, on the other hand, are rocking half, 3/4, full ounce. I'm like, Jesus, that's some big
There's
stuff.
some charter captains that start running 1.25 ounce, 1.5 jigs, and I don't know why. Some of these clients can't feel it, but they're fishing 30 feet in a 2-mile-an-hour current. I get some of it, but if I try not to go over 3/4 ounce ever. That's like the heaviest jig I'll ever use. But there is times where some of these, 40, 50-foot holes where you got to bump up to 1 ounce. Or if it's really super windy and you're not on the bow, so the back of the boat's kind of moving around, it helps you stay vertical. A lot of the rocks and stuff on the bottom, you get snagged up if you're not vertical,
So it's the idea is to be almost completely vertical, no dragging. You got to be.
Yeah.
So that's
for
where
the
that's
most
the way
part.
comes from. I gotcha. Wow, that's crazy.
It's a different game.
What's the current get up to? What's the current get up to in the spring?
It's usually around 1.5 miles to 2 miles an hour, depending on where you are. In the Detroit River, if you get up into St. Clair, where the Lake Huron bottles right up by Port Huron area, it's pretty rowdy up there. It's a good, it can get up to 3 miles an hour. It's rowdy, like it's crazy. But then if you throw a south wind against the current, it gets
out.
Yeah, well, it doesn't change ever, because all that water's coming down from here on. It gets rough, really, really rough. Like there'll be white caps in the river, and it gets pretty nasty in those big rivers. But
so that's the home of, or one of the homes, I guess everybody's the home of it, of some combat fishing. What can you tell me about fishing over the time there? What stuff you've seen up there?
The first time,
especially you have bullets on the end of your hooks. 1 ounce lure is going to cause some damage. So what's it like up there when it gets a little rowdy?
It's usually everyone's kind of in a good mood. The first time I ever fished the Detroit River, I was like, you could almost walk across these boats from America to Canada. It's packed. So most everyone's pretty courteous. There's some like unwritten rules, like you don't motor through the pack. You go out and around and start back up. And I've seen some words get said and some stuff at the docks, but for the most part, everyone's pretty cool about it. But there's sometimes when you're having a conversation with a guy 3 feet next to you and he's in a different boat. Like that is no lie. Especially on a Saturday or Sunday, it gets packed bad. Or if it's a holiday, GM, Ford, they're big employers in the area. So if they're not working that day, all those guys flock to the river. It gets kind of crazy. But there's certain areas you can tuck away in and kind of sneak by. Go over to the Canadian side, and it usually slims down quite a bit. But the American side, what we call mid-river, Charter Captain Alley, that gets on a weekend, that's nuts. It's hours waiting at a boat launch at 5 a.m. to try to get in the water. It's insane. But for the most part, everyone's pretty courteous and cool, as long as you're not being stupid. And most everyone that will kind of help you out, right? We're all trying to do the same thing. The tournament days, you're not going to get nearly the help as the weekend warrior guys are going to get, but that's to be expected.
Right. So you have to buy a separate license, I guess, I would assume, for Canada, fishing on the Canada side?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I buy the yearly. We're so close to Canada, and Lake Erie, Detroit River, St. Clair. We're always going over to Canada anyways.
Pretty much everywhere.
So Yeah, it's like $80 a year, depending on exchange rate, right? Like, so it's $80 a year, which isn't too bad at all,
No.
in my opinion. They do have a license that's a little bit cheaper than that. They call it a conservation license, but you're only allowed, I think it's 3 fish per license. So we just get the normal one. That way, there's no questions if you caught 5 and he caught 0. It's just we all got the same license. We're all out 5. Sometimes someone gets the hot hand on tournament day.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that. So
What do you do with your bait when you cross over lines there?
well, so that's the tricky part. That's the real tricky part. So minnows, even though they come out of the river, they have to be dead when you cross the line. So what we'll do is we'll either like put them on ice or vodka. Vodka is a good one. You pour live minnows in a bag of vodka. It kills them and preserves them. If you throw them on ice, that keeps them out as well too. But lately, it's been a crawler issue. So that was new. That was pretty exciting because we all like to fish with crawlers. So we cannot cross the border with night crawlers. Especially in the tournament situations. Maybe pre-fishing it might have got forgot a time or two, I'm sure, but tournament situations, actually they check the boats in the morning. They ask us, do you have crawlers on here? And they check it. Then if you're seen in Canada, you're DQ'd flat out. You can't run through Canada, drive through Canada, nothing. So what it is, I don't think it's I don't think it's a ministry thing like their Ministry of Natural Resources. I believe it's actually an import thing, like it's actual border patrol thing.
Probably because you didn't get their money. Probably as a tax thing.
Well,
could you buy them?
Well, so we thought so, but no. Once they come over, all of our night crawlers are certified Canadian crawlers, anyways.
Hey, listeners, let's talk outdoor streaming. What is the best outdoor streaming platform out there? Well, it's simple. It's Fix TV. Not only do they have this great program, but they have all kinds of hunting and fishing shows along with some weaponry shows. So when you get bored and need something to do, get your fix with Fix TV.
They all come from Canada. We can't take them back over there. It's just what the hand we're dealt, unfortunately. It sucks, really, but it just is what it is.
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean,
the minnow one's a tough one too because we dip them all out of the river. They all come from the same river. Like, come on, guys. I've never been checked, but I'm not willing to take that chance on tournament days, so I kill them. It is what it is. Most of the time, we try not to fish with them anyways, but if we have to, then we can kill them.
To be honest, us Wisconsin guys would love to have a reason to have some vodka in the boat. I mean,
yeah.
Because technically we can't have any alcohol in the boat when we're fishing, so.
We can recreationally, like obviously not tournament wise, but recreationally we can. But if you cross that imaginary line to Canada, no go.
That's
no
crazy.
alcohol.
That is nuts. I feel like there'd be, but I guess whatever, it is what it is. But yeah, that's the different rules you don't think about, right? I mean,
it is, and you got to really pay attention to their boat requirements because they're a little bit different than ours. Like you gotta have certain things over there that you don't necessarily have to have in Michigan. Like if you have a flare gun, that's illegal in Canada. You can't have a flare gun. The little guns you can buy. I forget who makes them, but to shoot the flare up in the air. You can't have that in Canada. You absolutely cannot.
Do you have to have it in Michigan?
Well, yeah, you have to have a flare of some sort.
Right, but it can't be a flare. I gotcha.
It can't be a flare gun. So we just have the traditional, like the stick flares, or there's a rechargeable one now.
Fuck, you gonna do this? All you gonna do the stick flare? Start your boat on fire? And I thought that's behind the gun is whatever.
Yeah, I mean you gotta hold it up. I mean we've let them off playing around, but thankfully I've never had a light one off in the boat, but. Yeah, it's just weird, little weird things. Like you got to have a floating rope in Canada. You don't necessarily have to have a floating rope in Michigan, but you got to have an anchor. We don't need an anchor. It's just different things you got to kind of.
That's an odd one.
Kind of know. Yeah, it is. It's kind of silly, but
right. Yeah, I mean, I guess
bucket too.
Yeah, I guess everybody has. Did you say they have to have a pee bucket?
Yeah, that's part of the rules.
Are you supposed to bring it back with you?
Well, yeah. I think you got to have it in your boat, like at all times. I don't know why. I've never asked an officer about that. I've been talked to a few times in Canada. They've never checked for any of that stuff. They really only care about your license and your driver's license and your fishing license, and usually it's have a good day, or whatever it is. But all my interaction with the Canadian Police or Department of Ministry has been positive, so never had any issues there.
So
Crossing the border once, I got some crap in a car, but
gotcha. So they patrol the waters too, just like anybody else would.
Yeah, before, like it used to be, you had to call ahead of time to cross, and then they would run everyone's license in the thing and in the boat and make sure everyone was good to go. And if your buddy had a DUI in the past, he couldn't go, so you couldn't go. They'd literally run their boats right up and down the border and check you. Anymore, they've pretty much lightened up on that a little bit. Like, hey, if you're buying a license, you're not touching land anyways. Come on over. Spend the money. It did get a little iffy in COVID. You weren't allowed to go over there in COVID and stuff like that. But that is what it is. That time. Who knows what was going on then. But for the most part, it's pretty liberal. It's easy. I do know some buddies that still do call over just to make sure that it's. But I've never called. I've never had a problem. So.
But your boat doesn't have to be dual registered, nothing like that.
Nope. I believe the guides have to have some sort of work permit for over there if they're guiding over there, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But it sounds about right. I think I've heard that. So, but no dual register, nothing crazy like that. Just have the license.
Wow.
They are pretty strict on line limits over there, but so just know the rules and you'll be fine. There's no live bait, heaven forbid.
Could you go over on their side, stop at a bait store and buy it, and then fish it? Then
100%.
Got the receipts.
Yeah. So we did that. We crossed over and pre-fished. Sometimes we'll cross over and fish on that side because the boat ramps are way less congested. You just go to the local store, buy some minnows, and whatever. It doesn't matter. They have some pretty weird. They call it bait management zones over there. And if you read the Canadian rule books, it's like an old yellow pages from back in the 80s. It's like, bang, it's thick. So you really got to pay attention to what you're doing. But they've got what they call bait management zones. And you can't take bait from one zone to the next zone. It gets really iffy. Detroit and Erie, and that's pretty much all one bait management zone. It's when you get up into the northern Michigan, Sault Ste. Marie, Drummond Island, when it gets really, really, really weird. There's imaginary lines everywhere that you can't do this on this side and this on that side, and slot limits, and it gets crazy up there. That's a new world up there. You really got to pay attention to what you're doing up there because it all looks the same.
Confiscated in jail in no time.
Yeah, it all looks the same up there. It's big rock piles everywhere, and next thing you know, you're in the wrong area.
Right. So what's anything in the current topics you want to talk about that's been in your craw?
Not really. I mean, I think we kind of covered everything. Trolling ain't going away. I'm a proud member of the Trolling Society. We trolled this year in the championship, and we were on our way back, and we had to stop and get gas. And my partner's like, hide those baits, and I looked at him and said, we're the only ones trolling up here, man. Like, we ain't gotta hide nothing. Like, they're gonna look at us like we're weird, but and we did all right. We took third. We made some mistakes on day one, but we adjusted on day two and did all right. But that's just it. It's trolling. I mean, trolling's good, and it's not going away. You can't take a 5-year-old out and go live scoping with a 5-year-old, and
right. And a lot of guides. It's easy on the guides too. Get fish in the boat. I mean, if you got to try to get two people in your boat, and they're paying $600 for the day, and you got to teach them both how to catch fish live scoping and get them 10 fish before you leave. That's a tall task right there.
Yeah, especially on Saginaw Bay, where you got 4 or 5 guys coming on your boat, and some of these guys have never touched a fishing rod in their life. Like, I always make fun of when I'm fishing next to my guide friends. I'm always making fun of them because they're all like, "You won't believe what just happened," and you can see it, rods upside down. I'm like, "Holy smokes, man! You got the patience of a saint." So, but like, it's just, other than that, I think the National Walleye Tour schedule is pretty legit next year. And I know there's a lot of talk about that. I kind of like it. It's kind of weird they're coming to Michigan twice. I was like, that's kind of weird, but it's really Green Bay. Let's be real.
It's pretty
Lake
interesting.
Erie is really just Lake Erie. It doesn't matter where you're at. So
right. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that they went back to back. up there, because it's funny because everybody talks about making the run. It is the Escanaba. I mean, that's where they're going. So I always thought, why are we going? Why are they going out of Ocano when they're just going to go up there anyways? It just, I guess it puts a little left turn and weather wise if they can get there now, if they're willing to go there. And it's pretty crazy what some of these guys will do with their boats, on the water. And Isaac alone with running a tiller and doing. I actually saw him the AIM Wisconsin championship. He ran from Ocano up there, and I was actually fishing. So for the whole month of August, I go and I camp out in Fish Creek, Wisconsin. It's right off of Chambers Island, right? And have some fun every weekend. I drive up there and catch big fish. So I was behind the island and nice and safe, nothing really going on. And I see him just going, and he must have been out of the air in the 200 feet I watched him. He must have been out of the air 7-8 times, fully just going. I'm just like, God damn. Guy's got balls.
We came to the Madison. We came to the Madison, Wisconsin fishing show, and the guys I traveled with over there, their booth was right next to the Warrior booth. So I talked to Isaac for quite a long time about just random things, and he's a super nice guy, nice guy. He was really open, and unlike some of the guys that are like, he was really open, really nice guy to talk to. But he is insane, isn't he? Like that's. Yeah. If you're going to make the mega run, good for you. Our is Alpena. Everyone wants to run to Alpena. No matter where we fish, they all got to go to Alpena. But so next year we are just going to launch right out of Alpena. So great. I only have to go 3 miles. So perfect.
Oh, that's funny. So to get you out of here, one last question. If you only could go fishing one more time, who are you taking? Where are you going and what you doing?
Man, you know what? I just love to take my dad fishing. Go trolling walleye, Saginaw Bay, just one time. It's he's obviously passed now, but it would be fun. For that thing, I would love to fish with my dad. Another guy angler is Wayne Van Dyke. He's from up in northern Michigan. I've got to fish with him a couple times. He's like he's kind of an older guy, but you kind of look at him like, man, I wish he was my grandpa. Like Wayne Van Dyke. He's a great dude, and I love to fish with him and chat with him. So between those guys, obviously you can't bring the dad back, but you just probably be Wayne. Wayne's just a good down to earth guy, and I love being around Wayne and talking to him, and just a wealth of knowledge, and he's probably seen everything under the sun, and obviously he's retiring this year, so it would be fun.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on. I enjoyed catching up and learn about you and Michigan world. I always, I don't know much. I've never actually fished in Michigan once. I'm hoping that this next spring I'm going to come out that way, but I've never fished in Michigan. I've never, not once, not even been close to the fishing there. It's to me, walleye fishing, until I got really into walleye fishing, there was always Erie, but there was nothing else over there, right? It was always, Green Bay West, right? Or, and growing up on Winnebago, it makes it tough to kind of, one of the homes of fishing. But now you guys got some great waters and more stuff talking about it. If it's the YouTube guys, it's 401 TV. I don't know how many times I've seen them troll and catch 26 after 26 after 26 inches on TV all the time. I'm like, God damn, every single day these guys out there just banging away, right?
The Detroit River is such an experience. Like everyone should experience it at one time. And some people, that's all they need is one time. Others, there's guys that just live for those 2 months a year. They fish like crazy when they're done. But we have such good waters from, obviously, Lake Erie. We have a very small sliver of it. But that northern Canadian shoreline's really good too at times. But the river systems all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie. Sault Ste. Marie is a different animal, but we have great walleye fishing all year. And the inland lakes aren't bad too up north, just as long as you get away from the metro areas, obviously.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on. And if you're looking to be on an episode of Walleye Chronicles, hit me up my socials at Matt Snell on TikTok or on Facebook or Instagram, and Smile and Fish on TikTok. So until next time, remember there's 2 things you can do every day to make somebody's life better. Is 1, give them a smile, and 2, take them fishing. Thank you.